Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just joined us, what a privilege to have your company. My name is Chris Snell, and we're back with the latest edition of APX, giving you the tools and the insights, the philosophies, ultimately the wisdom to meld you into what we call our motto: an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and ultimately becoming your very own army of one. An apex predator. We tried to record this interview originally, but then unfortunately the powers that be decided we have to cut you off, and we had to rearrange for another interview. But I've got the man here in front of me, John Weiman, proprietor of LifeBridge Coaching. To him we come to in a minute, but to kick off, I present to you the premise. And if there were to be a thesis, or rather a theme with regards to this interview, it would be two words: second chance. I'm not the only one to say it. People have said it before me. When you're given a second chance, everything that mattered up until a given moment is completely out of the ordinary, and it is completely made redundant. Because ultimately the things that matter today, now, are way different than things that mattered before. There have been times in my life, and I have to be very transparent saying this, having fought drug addiction, having fought alcoholism, having fought cancer, am I really at my second chance? How about that third time when I tried to commit suicide, the fourth time when I tried to commit suicide, the fifth time when I had a car accident, the sixth time when I had lost almost everything, my home, my dog, all of it. But the thing is we're still standing. And when you're given that responsibility, because it is a responsibility, echoing that famed quote by Ben Parker, with great power comes great responsibility, it's not just about me anymore. It's about others as well. And there's a humility, also a maturity that comes with that. Because having gone through a lot of drama and trauma and physical ailments and all that, you don't think the same, and you certainly don't talk the same. And unless you've experienced it for yourself, metaphysically as well, dare I say, the words that are coming out of my mouth are going to sound like cheap talk. So, in that regard, I've brought another voice who will correlate, if not exemplify, if not expand on what I had said. John is a man who radiates positivity, and I can say that because we've met prior. He is the proprietor, as I mentioned, of LifeBridge Coaching, and a man who has metaphysically taken on his second chance with gusto and with vigor. John talks to me about his second chance as also a significant psychological pioneering device, of which his practice separates the men from the boys. John, thank you for stopping by, my man. A second time around.
Yes, literally. How ironic. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. And listening to you and Second Chance brought a tear to my eyes, because you're right. It's not a second chance. It's, for me, I don't know, I've lost count. 4 or 5 chances. To give you a little background for your audience, 16 years ago, I was drinking too much, and I walked into the hospital with a stomach ache. And after 4 hours of testing, they said, all right, here's the deal. You're in complete liver failure. You keep doing what you're doing, you'll be dead in 2 months.
2 months, that's it.
2 months. And I had cirrhosis. And cirrhosis, doesn't really give you a warning. It doesn't, when you have it, and cirrhosis is scar tissue. Scars don't heal.
No.
So you're stuck with it, and there it is. That was my liver.
Folks, just keep that photo there for a second, John. Just keep that photo there. That is not macaroni and cheese.
No.
That is a liver that is damaged by alcoholism, folks. If you've got a sensitive stomach, I suggest that you turn off this interview for a couple of seconds. If you are listening, don't worry, but please don't watch the video. It is horrifying. And when he sent me this photo, I thought, wow, it takes a lot of guts.
Yeah.
But that was, and it's huge.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
huge.
yeah.
It looks like an enlarged heart from where I'm sitting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, but I will say that, if I kept doing what I was doing, given 2 months to live, I walked out and I thought, well, what do I do? Talk about a second chance. And I'm proud to brag a little. I thought of my mom, who's right there.
Shame.
She's
We
one of the
commemorate
original
you.
Nike posters.
We
Uh,
commemorate you, Miss Wyman. I understand
yes,
that you've had a heavenly birthday. God rest your soul,
yes.
Mum.
Thank you, thank you. So, my mom, first I thought if I can be half as strong as her, I'll be okay. I also remember her last words before she died were positive thoughts. And I thought, you know what? If she can have them at the time of her death, I can have them today. And I was given the opportunity and I literally stopped drinking immediately.
Cold turkey.
Yes, cold turkey. I very lucky. I did not suffer, the withdrawal symptoms that some people do. The shakes.
I did.
Yeah, I was very lucky. And during this process, first I um, waited basically 12 years for my liver transplant. Um, and during that time, first thing is, it took 2 years to actually get a chance to talk to a doctor.
Never mind getting on the donors list.
Correct. Yes. And basically, during those 2 years, what happened was I would get a call from my local doctor and they would say, John, go pee in a cup right now. We need to test you. Make sure you're
Mm.
not drinking.
Mm.
And I would literally have to stop what I was doing if I was at work anywhere and go pee. And after 2 years of negative tests, they said, okay, we'll have you talk to a transplant team.
Mm.
And I went to Penn in Philadelphia, and Dr. Shaked, with 12 doctors in the room, Dr. Shaked said to me, quote unquote, John, you messed up your liver. Why should we give you one? And I took a
Well,
breath.
if you want bluntness, there it is in fine
Yeah,
form.
it was great. It was amazing. And yeah, it was. And what I did was speak from the heart. I said, look, Dr. Shaked, I'll tell you this. I guarantee you I'm going to make it to that table. I don't care how long it takes, but I am going to do the work, and I guarantee you I will make it to that table. After that, it's your turn. You have to do the rest. But I have no doubt in my mind, I don't care how long it is, I'm going to make it to that table. And I will tell you, in the 12 years of getting to that table, I may have seen Dr. Shaked a total of 4 hours.
Mm.
And I'll never forget it. I was outside the operating room on the stretcher, and he comes walking by. And he said, John, you ready? And I said, yeah, Dr. Shaked, you remember what I said? And he goes, yeah, John, I remember. It's my turn now. I was like, oh my God. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is going to be okay. And, I
He
felt
thought you must have been bluffing, and now he called your bluff in so many words.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
his turn to call or fold.
Yeah. And, and now during those 12 years, I died 4 times. Yes, I died 4 times. So second chance, no. More chances than that. I had 2 strokes. One, I was on life support for 5 days.
Yikes.
I had seizures where I flatlined twice. There's something called the ascites. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but when the blood tries to go through the liver, it can't.
Mm.
And what it does is squeeze out the fluid in the cells. And that fluid goes all over your body, mainly to your stomach. And you
Which is
look
acidic.
pregnant. Yeah. You look pregnant. Well, I had 4,000 pounds. And yes, that number is correct, of fluid drained from my body during those 12 years. The first year, I would have 20 liters drained every 2 weeks. In addition to the ascites, what's fascinating about it, when it drains that fluid, it drains the protein from your body, and you have to, you walk out and you're exhausted. And one of the things I did, one of the commitments I made was I was never going to sit in a wheelchair and be wheeled out. I was going to walk out of the hospital, and I always parked farthest from the hospital. So I always walked because I was like, this is not going to stop me. So now, after 2 years, I guess they got tired of me tapping me, it's called, taking that fluid out every couple of weeks. And they had an operation called TIPS. And TIPS is transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic stent. They go through your jugular vein and connect your hepatic vein with your portal vein.
They do it for heart transplants and for heart patients as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So
watch the Clint Eastwood movie Blood Work. They actually show it in action.
Okay. All right. I had TIPS, and one of the things that happens is when it bypasses and the liver can't detox the blood. When that happens and that toxic blood goes to your brain, you have something called hepatic encephalopathy. And I had it twice. Once, well, in this country, you may know I'm in your country. I'm talking to my sister, and you'll never guess, Chris, who came knocking on the door and walking into my apartment. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln came, and he sat down, and he had his big hat on and everything. And I'm like, Patrice, you're not going to believe this. Abe's here. And she's like, John, what are you talking about? I'm like, Abraham Lincoln just came into my apartment. She's like, there's something wrong, John.
You're tripping.
Time. Yeah. And the other, it was the other time I had it was a true miracle. I had it when I was driving, and I didn't know. I do remember all these cars honking their horn. I do remember that. And I'll never forget, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and she immediately noticed I was not me. And she said, John, there's something wrong. And I said, yeah, the only thing that's wrong is my GPS isn't working. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, my GPS isn't working. I don't know what's going on with my GPS. She goes, John, there's something wrong. I'm going to call your brother. And I was like, fine, call him. And then she said, well, give me his number. And I'm like, fine, all right. And I'm going through my phone, and she said, John, what's his number? And I'm silent. And then she says, John, what's your brother's name? And I said, I don't know. And then she said, John, what is your name? I don't know. And she's like, oh my God, there's something wrong. What do you see? And luckily I was at an exit on the highway.
Thank goodness.
Yes. And there was a pharmacy right off the exit. She stayed on the phone with me and said, all right, I'm calling your doctor immediately. Now, one of the things in this process, once you are, have cirrhosis, since the blood can't detoxify, there's a medication called lactulose. Lactulose is an incredibly powerful laxative. Very powerful. And Chris, this is too much information for you, but you have to take it 3 times a day. And it just clears you out. Clears you out. Well, and here's the part, and I'll confess to you. If you don't take it, that's when the blood, toxic blood, can go to your brain. And when I was in my car, I had a friend of mine. I took the laxative, but she was pregnant and having a baby. So I drove her to the hospital and was with her. Well, for 30 hours, I didn't take my medication.
Oh, no.
And I didn't realize that this would happen. I'm like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And so it's this laxative you have to take, and 3 times a day. And it's not pleasant. And, and
it makes you incontinent.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And in addition to that, I also had, I don't know, a dozen surgeries. When I finally had my transplant, June 1st, 2020, I had 3 surgeries in the month of May before.
Gee whiz.
I don't know how it works there, but there's something called the MELD score.
Yeah, you told me about the MELD score.
Yes. And for your audience, I'll say, once you're listed on the transplant list, it is not a line. It is a list. Sickest go first.
Yes, much like with first one in, last one out, last one in, first one out, sort of deal.
Yes. So the MELD score goes between 6 and 40. 6, you're sick. 40, you're dead.
And didn't you tell me that it also varies from state to state?
Yes, exactly. When you get a transplant, because it's based on demand in the state. For example, Tennessee, you can get a transplant at like a 15. New York or California, you're at a 35. I had mine in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was a 28 at the time of transplant.
Good grief.
But during the month of May, I went from a 9. I had 3 surgeries, went from a 9 to a 15 to a 22 to a 28. When I woke up from the 3rd surgery, they said, John, there's an ambulance outside. You're going to get a transplant. And I was like, great. Okay. And, the transplant experience, it was 18 hours of surgery, 6-hour break, and then they went in for another 6 hours. So it was a total of 24 hours of surgery. And one of the things, and that was June 1st, 2020. It is now November 24. They said, oh, by the way, John, we found cancer. And you're going to have to get tested every 3 months for 5 years.
Which is understandable, because you need to also determine if the new organ is being accepted by the body and.
Correct. And I have been very, very lucky. So far my tests have been good. I had skin cancer because you have to take an immunosuppressant drug to help the liver be accepted. And I call my liver Troy, my friend Troy. Well, I will tell you about Troy, and it's one of the things that's so impactful, or was to me. When I was admitted to Penn as a 28 MELD, the doctor came in and said, John, we found a donor. We're 100% confident that this is a perfect match. And I said, good, I'm 100% confident in you. And then she said words that I struggle with today. She said, John, we just have to wait for the family to say goodbye. And I knew my hours were numbered. I was basically pee and blood. I knew my hours were numbered, and yet this family, I was so torn because I can't say hurry up.
No.
I can't. No, I mean, and I made a commitment to Troy that Troy, take your time, take your time. I'm going to be okay. I will. I can wait for you.
But why the name Troy? After referring to the city in ancient Greece, or was it just something that came up in your mind?
It just, honestly, it just came up in my mind. And, I love your question because I never really thought about it until today. I'll tell you why. I have never met a Troy in my life. So Troy is special.
Okay.
Special to me.
Well, that puts it into perspective perfectly.
Yeah, I just wanted someone, and I will tell you also in that process, you have to wait. I think it's at least a year. You can contact the family, all right, but you can't contact them directly. You go through the hospital,
right, through a third party.
And I wrote a letter to Troy's family and saying, this is how, I'm doing, and thank you so much. And obviously I did not say Troy. I didn't use that name.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So, and they didn't respond, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So, again, it was an amazing experience, and second chance. Yeah. And the beauty of being given a second chance, third chance, whatever, many chances. As you know, I live on the water.
And you should see the deck that he has on his Instagram page. It is picturesque. A visual artist's dream canvas.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's interesting that, like, today I was, before this, sitting out there having my coffee, and the second chance is so beautiful because it's really windy here, and the waves have white caps.
Probably as the seasons change from fall to winter, I'm assuming.
Yes. And I really took about 10 minutes to stare at the white caps, the waves of how rough it is and how beautiful, absolutely beautiful, to enjoy those waves. And, I think when I was drinking and before that, I never took the time to enjoy life.
I was about to say the same thing. In the throes of addiction, life goes by, as I've often explained it, at the speed of the fast forward option of your VCR. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, and it's also hazy and, excuse me, it's hazy and it's lack of detail, and you're just living for that next high or for that next pop that you're about to insert into your body. But in the grace that is sobriety, you see life in high definition, as we are blessed with that technology today. And it also reminds me a lot of your story. You heard me mention the motion picture Bloodwork. It's a 2002 film directed and starred by Clint Eastwood. It's one of his lesser-known feature films, but listen to the premise, and I'm sure you will understand the thread of what I'm trying to bring across. He plays an aging police detective on the trail of a serial killer, and just as he is about to apprehend the criminal, he suffers a devastating heart attack in need of a transplant.
Wow.
A couple of years later, the story fast forwards. He's now had his transplant. He's medically discharged because he can't work anymore. And then he receives a visit from a lady, and it turns out that this serial killer is on the loose again. But that's not even the tip of the iceberg. The woman who visits him and ultimately becomes his companion has a sister who has been targeted by the serial killer, and Clint Eastwood has her heart.
Oh, wow.
To our audience and to John, I highly entice you. Please check it out. It's a great film. I can't understand why this film did not receive as commercial attention as he would 2 years later with Million Dollar Baby, scoring, I believe, his third and fourth Oscar. But really a heart-wrenching story, and it makes you think. And it was one of the first films that I saw in sobriety and I just had fought cancer myself, and I had just gotten into complete remission. And I was looking at this film. I'd seen it as a boy, but looking at it now through fresh eyes, it makes you question everything that you think you know about mortality. And dare I say, you even adopt a theologic view after seeing it. A great performance by Clint Eastwood. And for those who loved the TV series Suits, Rick Hoffman, who played Louis Litt, makes a turn as a quirky filing clerk who actually holds the key to the mystery. And a lot of what you're telling me, John, fits that story like a Hollywood script.
Oh, well, it's amazing that, how the donor experience and everything. I do want to share with you one interesting thing I learned about addiction, and how you're so blind to how it affects you. I wrote a book called The Jersey.
Here it comes.
A Jersey Kind of Love. And
listen to this.
It's about three bad kids you can't help but like, their relationships and their views on their parents. Now, here's the fascinating part. Half the book I wrote hammered. I would come home from the bar and write for hours. And when I was diagnosed with cirrhosis, I stopped writing for a while.
Sure.
And I had to get better. And I thought, one day I was like, I don't even remember what I wrote, but you know what? I want to finish the book. I want to finish what I started. And I read the book. I started to read it, and it really impacted me how it changes your mind in ways you don't know. What I did was I killed two of the main characters.
What?
Yeah. I killed them. Two of the main characters. There's, again, I said three kids you can't help but like, their girlfriends. And of those six, I killed two of them.
Gee whiz.
And I went, and sober, I went back and I thought, wait, why did they have to die? What was I thinking? And I tore the pages up. And they didn't die now.
Thank goodness.
But yes, and it's always made me think about, the damage we do with addiction that we're not even aware of, how we think of people. I mean, another one was, I drank mainly in the bar, and I was the most popular guy. I was that guy. Well, and I thought I had the best friends in the bar. Well, when I got sick, none of them stayed in touch with me except one, and she's dead.
Mm.
So, the world that you convince yourself that you have when you're drinking is a lie.
Very much.
It's not true. I mean, and you're just completely blind to it. And, again, I will tell you an interesting experience I had about the reality of transplant, and it's going to sound really hard, but I'll never forget, I had a surgery one time, and it was a hernia. I had a hernia, and if I had the surgery, there was a 30% chance I would die within a month. If I didn't have the surgery, there was 100% chance I would die if the hernia burst.
Mm.
So, and I went to Penn for this, where I had my transplant, and it went up the ladder. The first year intern came in and said, all right, John, here's the deal. We'll do a second tips operation on you. And I'm like, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. And it went all the way up the ladder to Dr. Chiquette, the chief of transplant surgery. He asked his assistant one question, and he said, all right, John, here's the deal. We'll do the surgery. You'll probably be here a month, and we'll see what happens. And I trusted him, obviously. And
Sure.
he said, come back Tuesday. So on the way out, I'm on the street, and I saw the guy second in command. And we're talking, and I said, hey, doctor, I figured out what this is all about. And he goes, oh, yeah, John, what's it about? And I said, it's about money. And he said, you're damn right it's about money. It is our job to keep you alive. We have to give you the best care because failed transplants cost money.
They do.
And as an example, in Baltimore, I am 10 minutes away from Johns Hopkins.
One of the best medical institutes next to Sloan Kettering.
Yes. Well, Johns Hopkins wouldn't talk to me. And the reason is that they were on probation for failed transplants. Yes.
Oh, no.
They were on probation. Now I will defend them. It was not a function of their skill at all. They're great. What it was a function of is the patients they accepted. And the patients died. I mean, so that's like literally my understanding is if you are listed on the transplant list and you get hit by a car, that's a failed transplant. You didn't survive.
What?
Yes.
How do you reckon that in?
Well, I almost did die. I was encephalopathic. I was hallucinating driving.
Oh, okay. There is that gray area.
Yeah.
But being hit in a hit and run, that doesn't count. That is existential.
Right. But they don't know, they don't know your conditions. So, their job is to keep you alive. And if that surgery threatened my life, if they weren't sure, that I was going to be okay. Now, as I said, Dr. Chiquette said, come back Tuesday, you'll probably be here a month. And in a tribute to him, I had the surgery at 7:30 in the morning and walked out of the hospital at noon that day.
No kidding.
I woke up and he said, John, you're fine. You can go home. I'm like, all right, Dr. Chiquette, thank you. And again, I trusted him. Originally, he thought it would be a lot rougher. I guess I was in a lot better shape. And I'm saying me, but I give the credit to him. He did the work, and it was such a relief. I'll never forget calling a family member and saying, hey, you got to come pick me up. They're like, what? You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be admitted for a month or so. I'm like, nope, I'm fine. I'm good. So I was very lucky. But, and again, second chance, third chance, fourth chance, we have to take the time to, really appreciate how lucky we are. But we also have to take the time to be honest with ourselves regarding our addiction.
Keyword, honesty.
Yeah, it's, I, remember, my addiction was based in one word: alone. I drank not to be alone. I'll never forget, I started drinking basically in 7th grade. In 6th grade, my two best friends, we walked to school together every day, came up to me and said, we can't be friends with you anymore because we like girls and you're not cool enough too. and they walked away from me. And I
Yeah.
feel that loneliness today. I literally see them walking away in my head, felt alone, and I was determined to prove them wrong. That summer, I was alone the whole summer. And so school restarted, and the Friday night, there was a bonfire, big party for the football team. And I said, I'm going to prove them wrong. And I went into my parents' liquor cabinet and I poured every liquor into a can with a little bit of soda or something with it and drank it. It was the most disgusting thing I ever had, but I got drunk. And guess what? I talked to every girl at the bonfire. So I was
Hence
like,
the colloquial nickname Liquid Courage.
exactly. So, and guess what? I didn't feel alone at that bonfire because I was talking to everyone.
Mm.
Alcohol addiction is one thing, but I call myself a peopleholic. That's why I drank. I drank to connect with people because I was so alone. And I will also tell you, it was very embarrassing, but during, the heart of my drinking and living alone, my apartment was a disaster area. Clothes everywhere, all over the floor.
Mm.
And every once in a while, I would clean it up and it was spotless. Chris, you would think that would be a great feeling. It was horrible.
Like an Easter egg. Nice and
Yeah.
colorful on the outside, but hollow on the inside. Totally get
Yeah.
that.
I realized that those clothes on the floor were friends. I felt empty. You said it perfectly. I felt empty. And the first thing I would do when I felt that way is go to the bar. So it was
Yeah.
I'm proud to say the loneliness or aloneness today, as I said, I live on the water. I have a little boat. And, Chris, I don't want you to worry about the world coming to an end. But if you ever hear aliens coming to attack you, it is not. It is me with my headphones on singing. Right? I am singing, and it's really bad, but I embrace that alone time.
That solitude.
Yeah, I
You've
embrace
reframed it from loneliness into solitude. Very
exactly,
important. I did
exactly.
exactly the same when I
Yeah,
started taking up athletics as a hobby.
yeah.
I had to
It's
reframe that word loneliness and switch it over to say, now I need this solitude because I want to get better.
yeah. I every morning I walk 5 miles, and all I do is embrace that solitude and think about all sorts of things, and really, I'm thankful for that. Um, it's embrace my truths about
And you
addiction.
radiate it, dare I say.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You radiate it. Look, you've been very transparent up until this point, telling a story of hope with a harrowing undertone. But if people who are looking at this and even listening to you, you never without a smile, you are not self-deprecating overtly, but you poke fun at yourself,
Absolutely.
which is highly unlikely for someone who underwent the last door before death.
Well, let me share with you, and it's embarrassing. In my field as a counselor, I worked with one of the best in the world, a guy by the name of Dr. James Masterson.
No
And
kidding.
yeah, I worked with him for 9 years. And one of the most impactful things he said to me was, John, you got to realize in treatment, it's 6 months before they stop lying. And it's not you went to one grocery store when you went to another. All right. This 6 months thing, Chris, I was a little slow. I discovered a lie I was telling myself 15 years later after stopping drinking, because people often ask me, and I have to laugh at this. Wait, John, you didn't go to rehab? You didn't go to therapy? You just stopped drinking cold turkey like that? And you were fine with that? Yeah, Chris, I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die. And people are like,
Well,
okay,
I'll
that
meet you
makes sense.
halfway. I'll meet you halfway. When I was celebrating 2 years, I attended a local NA meeting in another town when I was still living there.
Hmm.
And the first question I got asked in a roundtable discussion of fellow alcoholics and addicts, do you ever regret not going to rehab? And I said, no. Daggers out the eyes. Daggers out the eyes. And ultimately, I decided they weren't worth my time anymore. You know that tired old saying, there's
Hmm.
a reason for every season. So
Yeah.
my season was over, and it was time to endorse and embrace a new season. God bless every single one of them. I bear no torches, but that was really a dick move on their part. Really a
Yeah,
dick move.
I love it. And I'll tell you this.
Because they're
this
not
fe-
perfect,
Mhm.
like what you and I are. So for them to crucify you and to crucify me for not undertaking something which we can't afford, mind you,
Right.
gives them not the right to hold a gun to our heads or a knife to our throats just because that they had state funded and we had to go private funded if we were
Hmm.
presented the choice.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll confess to you my truth about, well, I didn't want to die. And people said, that makes sense. Well, the truth was, and it's embarrassing, I thought dying would hurt. And I'm like, I don't want that pain. No, no. When I played sports, contact sports, Chris, I'd rather run away from you than run into you because that contact hurt. And
But why would you say that it is embarrassing? Because I agree with you. Look, when
it's a
I was in treatment for cancer,
mm-hmm.
all I wanted was remission. That's all I wanted. I didn't care if it was remission on recurrent basis, if it
Mm-hmm.
would had to have boiled down to me going on intermediate medication for the rest of my life. I couldn't give two hoots. But when the doctor said you are in complete remission, much like with the recent fight now with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson,
Mm-hmm.
it was a knockout.
Yeah, yeah.
So I agree with you. It's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah,
Because let me tell you why, and you should know this as a counselor as well. The ones who are always pointing fingers never realize there are three pointing back. I said it on a
oh,
previous episode too.
I love that. Absolutely. And it was, I'll tell you another memorable moment after I was diagnosed. I met with a gastroenterologist and he said, all right, John, tell me about your drinking. And I literally thought at that moment, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And I told him everything, everything. And he said something to me that changed my life and saved my life. He said, well, John, listening to you, it sounds like you closed that chapter of your life. And I said, that's exactly what I did. I've closed that chapter. That does not exist. I mean, to this day, like my mouthwash doesn't even have alcohol in it. I
I have
will
to
not.
consent as well that I also still remain very skittish of having alcohol anywhere in some shape or form or another. I mean, a lot of my friends now make exception for mocktails and for non-alcoholic beer. Being 6 years down the line, I still don't want anything resembling alcohol near me. Not out of
Yeah.
fear, but just that extra, what is the word I'm looking for? Not durability, reinforcement that my
Well,
chances of relapsing will never
I'll
occur.
I'll share with you. It's a little controversial. It's something I learned about myself, and I am 100% confident I will not drink again ever. And um, recently, I was talking to someone about Australia. It's
Mhm.
been a dream of mine to go to Australia. Always wanted to go.
The
Well,
Outback or the Metropole?
I don't know, and I mean the truth is, and I do have shame about this. I know if I went to Australia within an hour of getting off the plane, I would be in a bar. I would be in a bar and I would tell myself, John, this is a once in a lifetime trip. You've always wanted to go here. You can live a little. go ahead. And the truth is, I would never leave the continent. And so
Which is
obviously, I don't want to
commendable
go
for
there.
being self-aware.
Yeah,
I
I don't
commend you
want to
for
go
being
there.
self-aware.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to, like, so many times in my addiction, I made deals with myself.
As we all do.
Yeah, and that is not. I can go to Australia and I'll be okay. No, I that is not a deal I'll make. And where I got that from is I'll never forget. After being diagnosed, it was a month or two later. I was at a stoplight and I had just received bad news. And here was a moment. If I went straight through the light when it turned green, I would go straight to the bar. And if I went right, I would go right home.
Mm.
And I'm there. I'm like, come on, John, come on, light, turn, turn, turn. And when it turned, I went right. And I've been going right ever since.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, that's beautiful. I commend you for that. And believe you me, I have this conversation with myself every day.
Mm-hmm.
This was a question I was going to ask,
Sure.
but this also a full prelude. John, are you still there? Okay,
yes.
There I see. Your video just froze for a second, but thankfully you're back online. I give myself a 3-second rule with everything to assure myself that what I need to do today will get done.
Mm-hmm.
I give myself a 3-second space to think, decide, execute. Nothing more, and certainly nothing less. And more times than not, it is often the right decision, because I'm that kind of person with my thinking. You know this as well from your work as a counselor. Your left brain is your analytics, your right brain is your creative.
Yes.
So I'm balanced in my brain with a majority left brain hemisphere dominance.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that left brain dominance correlating with my right brain creativity, I picture what would it within a frame of 3 seconds look like if I made the right choice. We always hear about the consequences of the wrong choice. What would be the consequences if we were to make the right choice?
Yes.
Correlating with what you said of the right way.
Yes.
And then it becomes, excuse the pun, a no-brainer.
Right.
And I carry on with my day with gusto.
Yeah.
And that is how I've taken my approach in my work, how I've taken my approach to athletics, because a couple of years into sobriety, I took up marathon running, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Oh, wow.
But not for the end product of having a slim physique, which I do have now. I've shed off loads of weight, but for conquering my mind, which is, I'm sure you must know of David Goggins.
Yes.
Which David has extemporated about consistently putting callous on the mind. I'm conquering my own mind on a daily basis, which has been the prima facie culprit in my thinking. As my friend Rob Kelly says from the Rob Kelly group, it's not in the drinking, it's in the thinking.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, yeah.
Correlating with what you have said. But now to my question, John. It's now been, help me right quickly, 4 years since you've had that liver transplant?
Yeah, almost 4.5. Yeah.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
In the recovery period when you got your new liver, did you have to go on a training regimen, a medication regimen? How did you start to meld into the John Weiman that people seem to know and love today?
I have to take medication twice a day, anti-rejection medication twice a day. And I will be taking that for the rest of my life. I eat so much more healthier. I exercise more. I need to do a better job of that. I have a responsibility to Troy. Troy gave his life for me, and I have a responsibility to take care of him. And
that's humility right there. I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
And another thing taking it a step further, you are, as you mentioned, a counselor. You spoke to me the last time. You are Gottman trained,
Yes.
and you saw a gray area which ultimately became the pioneering aspect of your practice. Tell me about that.
Okay. All right. In typical counseling sessions, it's an hour or 50 minutes. And Chris, you're telling me something important. And I say to you, really? Chris, time's up. I need your credit card. Talk to you next week. And you walk out, or we end the Zoom call, and you're a mess. It's complete chaos when it's over. And it's not said as harsh as, really, I need your credit card, let's go. It is, unfortunately, our time is up and we have to pick this up tomorrow, and click off. I can do it. I'm not a big fan of it. I receive national recognition here, where what I do is I charge per session, not per hour.
Right.
And what that means is I want it to end better than it began. And I really don't care how long it goes. Typically, it goes about 3 hours. I've seen well over 3,000 couples, individuals. It goes about 3 hours. Now, here's another part that'll floor you. Between sessions, the person or people, either one, can call me anytime.
Wow.
And if we talk for an hour or whatever, it's included. So they love the ability for open access. For example, before I signed on, I met with a couple last night, and the husband called me this morning. And he's like, hey, you free? I'm like, yeah, let's talk. Yeah, what's going on? And he said, well, this is what we talked about on the ride home. And, I want to know what you think, and let's talk about it. So being Gottman trained, I'm 100% believer in it, because in my marriage relationship, I try it all. And 100% of the time it works. So
You're a living guinea pig.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, but again, it's, I look at, treatment as, this is their life. And I can't sit there and, just say time's up. I mean, and ironically, talk about a small world. In a half an hour, guess who I'm meeting with? Someone with a drinking problem.
Wowee.
And it's costing her life, everything. I mean, it's, her husband is filed for divorce. Her daughter doesn't talk to her. It's tough. Now
Sounds like
she
she's on the
has
point of
done a
coming
good
to her
job.
knees.
Yeah, she has done a good job being sober for a short time. And she's had some challenges. Her husband is a trigger. So,
right.
but you have to make the decision and commitment. You have to go right at the light.
Yeah.
You have to have that decision. So it's, I look forward to it. Because as I, always say, my reason for talking to you is, people with drinking aren't really aware of the medical consequences of alcohol abuse. They don't think about it, and they're in denial. I will tell you, cirrhosis was giving me a warning, because I remember my eyes were yellow. And I
I've
was
seen that, and it looks scary.
Yeah, I was putting Visine in my eyes and going drinking. Knowing, and talk about denial, knowing, hey, your body's telling you you're drinking too much. Oh, I'll just hide it. You have to be really honest with yourself. And again, the medical consequences, still paying for it. Still paying for it. And I do look at the positive. I've always said, while getting cirrhosis was the worst thing that happened to me in my life, it was also the best.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was definitely the best. I look at life, the second chance. It's such a gift.
I wanted to
It's
say, take your time,
it's
mate.
yeah, it's such a gift. I will tell you, I'll never forget. I was in the transplant waiting room talking to another patient,
Mm.
and she said to me, and it was life changing. John, what do you want to be remembered for? And I was like, wait, what do you know that I don't know? What are you trying to tell me? And she goes, no, I want to know, what do you want to be remembered for? We're both in this position. And I said to her, I want to be remembered for loving and accepting everyone for exactly who they are and maybe making them laugh a little bit. And Chris, I remember it like it was yesterday. I thought in my head, that's a good answer. She'll like that answer. I wanted to give a good answer. And then she said something that changed my life. She said, are you living that way?
Don't
And
just
I,
tell me it. Do
yeah, I
it.
went, yeah. I was like, oh, wow. And I
Yeah.
lied and said, I don't know. And she said, well, why don't you try? And that changed my life. I love and accept everyone for exactly who they are. Maybe
You
make
know,
them laugh a little.
you're the embodiment of
Yeah,
it.
it's
You
and
know, the beautiful thing from what you have just said is a statement that I have heard time and again. When a man is on his last leg, that last train ride on the way to heaven, the only thing that he's got left is his legacy.
yeah,
What do you want to be remembered for? Your reputation or your legacy? If
yeah,
option B were to be the status quo, what is that legacy going to be like?
yes, yeah. And again, I'm lucky that I've been able to change my legacy. Um,
Not just establish it, change it.
yeah, 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 definitely. You know, I am going to give it thought what my legacy would have been drinking. It wouldn't have been good. Um, versus today. Um, it's nice. I mean, I love my practice and being there for people. Um, I Let me see if I can find it. Uh, I will. I mean, this is the heartbeat of why I do what I do. And oh, here it is. It's a client of mine. He says to me, well, he wrote this to me. I've known you for over 8 years. There really aren't any words that can do justice to the value of your expertise and friendship. Blending your own life experiences with your studies, John finds brilliant insights of inside of pain and chaos. He's provided me a path to first find yourself so the world around you can reopen. He's guided me through a painful divorce and into the next chapter of my amazing life. While it was clear I had more to learn, John was there once again. He has literally saved my life twice.
Money can't buy that.
Yeah, and that's why I do what I do. And I'm very lucky to be given a second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th chance.
And I bet you there are going to be people who are going to be watching this episode or are listening to this episode. Let's not forget the audience who are orally inclined, who are going to be listening to your story, case in point, and they are going to be so jealous that your Hollywood script story happened in real life. You're sitting here telling it, and a lot of them are going to be thinking, why didn't that happen to me?
It can.
You get the
Yeah.
context.
Oh, yeah, but it can happen to you. It can happen. If I can do it, Chris, anyone can. It's
Sure.
just literally making the decision.
Absolutely.
It's
Couldn't
all it
agree
is,
more.
making the decision um, to go right at the light, turn
And
right.
Then a final question onto that,
Sure.
ending it off on a high note. Looking at your life from then until now, you can sit there, you look at me square in the eye, and you can say you have no regrets, do you?
No, no, no. If and ironically, I say this, and I truly believe it. You know, given cirrhosis, dying, 5 times, whatever. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I would do it again because everything good in my life happened after I was given 2 months to live. I mean, I truly believe that, and I also have an understanding of why the unhealthy addiction happened. Um, and I'll share with you like one of the things with my mom right behind me. Um, I'm one of 5 children, and my oldest brother and sister went to Princeton. All right. And I really admired them, looked up to them. And on separate occasions, a year apart, they said to me, John, if mom were alive today, she'd be prouder of you than any of us.
Wow.
And that is why that poster is right there. My
A
mom's with
perfect
me.
token remembrance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, I'm very lucky.
I'm with
Very
you on that. I'm with you
Yes,
on
you
that.
are. We're
My mom and
related.
I were we were exercising in the gym this morning, and we were working out. Now, my mother's more or less your age,
Hmm.
and I communicate with her a little differently, whereas I communicate with myself in the midst of heated activity. You know, the difference between men and women.
Hmm.
And she made a remark to me, and she said, "You've got your body structure from your late grandfather."
Oh wow.
Now, my father was a little bit more plump. We are sadly estranged. But when I went through significant weight loss, the effects of weight gain after so many years of drinking and drugging, it was quite the revelation to see that I've actually got a slim build. And my late granddad, my maternal late granddad, had a very slim build. And uh, he, being so blessed with a thirst for knowledge, I inherited. Being blessed with an ability to fluently speak the King's English,
Yeah.
I've been blessed with. I'm with you on that. And when she made that remark, I couldn't help but get a little tear in my eye because my maternal granddad, now looking back, was everything to me. I never had the opportunity to have as much of a relationship with him as I would have had with my paternal granddad, but at least before he died, he and I had spent some very intricate time together over our shared love, over a thirst for knowledge. Because on both sides of the family tree, I'm only one of, say, maybe 2 or 3 grandkids who moved on to tertiary level education, whereas
Wow.
all the others decided to, live their life the way they wished. So, in that regard, of having that token of remembrance,
Wow.
that is also what money cannot buy. And
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
to you, you've got a reason to be proud every given day. John, congratulations.
Thank you.
And for many people who are still going to be coming, knocking on your door, including those who you have helped, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just say one thing. It's
Happily.
the best compliment I can give you. When I was a little kid, about my mom, um, she'd hold me in her arms and make me listen to Barbara Streisand. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. And she'd cuddle with me, and then every once in a while she'd say, "Do you love me?" And I'd say, "Yeah, mom, I love you." And she'd say, "How much?" And I was in first grade or something. And I learned the biggest number was infinity. And I said, "Mom, I love you to infinity." And to all my close friends, now to you, I end the conversation with, Chris, infinity. Infinity.
Back at you, my good man.
Yeah.
To our audiences, I would like to invite you. Please visit www.lifebridgecoaching.com. That is John's modus operandi. He gives a full breakdown of the type of therapy that he presents as part of his portfolio, be it for one-on-one and especially marriage therapy, which is his MO. If you want to follow John on Instagram, he has an Instagram page, life_bridge_coaching, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And also, you're more than welcome to write him up. And also, myself and John would like to extend a thank you, especially to Mike Ferrer from soberpress.org. John got published this week as part of the Sober Press article. I'll be sure to add that link to the show notes of this episode. You can see this man smiling from ear to ear and read up about his story for yourself. Guys, that being said, I want to correlate with what John said. We all need each other. Let's start agreeing to disagree and start listening towards one another. Just my 5 cents I want to add to that occasion. John, again, thank you so much, my good man.
And Chris, just so you know, I deal with couples literally all over the world. I just do Zoom or Skype or whatever. So if anyone does find they're interested, I do it all over the world.
There you have it.
Okay.
Guys, my name is Chris Snell. That's John Weiman, reminding you that through work with LifeBridge Coaching, through work by viewing this episode, you have taken the first step to becoming an unbreakable mind, an unstoppable force, an untamed spirit, and culminating becoming your very own army of one. Bye-bye, guys.